I am 1,000 times more valuable and powerful as a coach in web design, because not only do I have my experience, but I also have retained the kind of consultant role for In Transit. So I get updates from Eric, my CEO, and at any point I can dip in and see like, hey, how are we doing maintenance plans? How are we doing support for the maintenance plans? What do the growth plans look like? What are you doing in marketing and web design? So I have like, literal like behind the scenes on all of that. And I'm overseeing hundreds of web designers who are in different stages and have different models. And I perhaps know the fastest route to success for web designers now, because I can pinpoint where someone's at, what their goals are, what model is going to work best for them, potentially even what tool set will work for them, and then help them get there with the support and coaching that they need. I need to put that on the sales page, by the way.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hello, my friend. It's great to have you here for this one, a special episode of the podcast, because not only is it special because we have a repeat guest on the show, but it's because this was actually a conversation that was recorded for my guest's podcast. This is Mark Szymanski, who I view as somebody who is kind of on the leading edge of the technology side of web design, particularly AI, and has a really good finger on the pulse of what is happening today in web design. He has a podcast called Fueled by Progress. And this conversation you're about to hear was recorded for that. Mark was kind enough to allow me to share this with you as a listener of the Web Design Business Podcast, because we covered some great ground in this one. We do get into a little bit about what I've experienced and how I've seen web design as an industry change for web designers, which is one of the main reasons I wanted you to hear this, because I think there are some very important things that are different now in 2026 than there were when I got started in 2010, but a lot of things have stayed the same. So we cover a lot of ground in regards to how the industry has changed, where things are at today for web designers. But because he has such a pulse on what's going on in technology, we get into AI and the role that that's playing right now in web design. And also, Mark was really interested as a webpreneur himself in some of my journey going from web designer to owner to course creator to community builder to coach to handsome model. So all those things and more are covered in this wide-ranging and super fun chat with Mark Szymanski. Show notes for this one are going to be at joshhall.co/416. You can connect with Mark at markszymanski.co. And again, he's the host of the Fueled by Progress podcast. I'm not sure if this one's going to be live by the time on his show by the time this comes out, but definitely give that a listen and go give Mark a follow. Tell him you heard him on the Web Design Business Podcast. All right, here we go.
Josh Hall, my brother, how are you doing? Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me and for being patient as my family is undergoing a New Year's sickness, as many people are. So, but you know what I was actually thinking about? It's so freaking cool to be in a position. Like, I don't know what we would do with a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
If, like, what do people do? Like I was just saying, we got like a belly bug going through the house. My wife is out for the count. Like, it would just be so hard. And with the special needs kiddo, I can't imagine, being able to, I don't know, like you have no sense of freedom with a 9-to-5 without leave. So anyway, all that to say, I'm doing really good considering, the sickness and thinking about the freedom that we have in this industry.
100%. Yeah. It's, I think about that all the time as well. Got a lot of good chats or a lot of good topics here that I think kind of like revolve around that. Cause I'm going to tee it up here and we can go a couple of different ways with this, but I talk to a lot of, in my tenure here of like WordPress kind of like adjacent content and building my community there. We have some different directions that we're going that we could definitely talk about here on this chat as well. But I'm going to tell you like one of the specific things, and I sent you a voice memo the other day, when we're kind of starting to think about this, is I talk to a lot of younger people now, I feel like, or something. Like, I feel like it's like 20-year-olds to like 35-year-olds. A lot of people are like, they're entrepreneurs, they're freelancers, they're doing their thing. The thing that you already mentioned about this is how your family dynamic affects your business, right? And I think you positioned your chat with Jay Klaus recently kind of around this a little bit. It was, as part of it. Obviously, we're talking business because that's what we're thinking about it a lot. But I think your story there and your dynamic is particularly interesting to me. And as we were talking about off camera, I have a son due in May. So like I am rapidly thinking about this. So I think part of our chat today would be great for myself and for the listeners to kind of like get your wisdom on what it's been like to run a business while you were also like, building a family, dealing with like, New Year's sickness, like all these types of things. Cause that's something that I know. Maybe it's a selfish question because I'm gonna have to deal with it here pretty soon, but it's something that I definitely would love to chat about. So that's definitely part of this. But I say we table that just for a second.
Okay.
And let's talk a little bit. So introduce you to the people if they don't somehow already know you, because you've been in the WordPress game, you've been in the coaching community game here for a very long time. I try to always do this with the guests that I have on because I like to really solidify like the foundation. So I think it's really important to understand where people have come from, like their origin and their journey. So I kind of know yours a little bit, but I would love for you to share just kind of like how you got started. I know specifically kind of like in WordPress, I guess. And then, there was the Divi days and now there's the coaching, the community mentorship and everything like that. But like, how did that all kind of stem? Where did you first get into? I know you had the agency. Was that kind of like the first glimpse into like digital marketing and like service and helping people? Was there a little bit before that? Where does it all really start at?
It really started, I was a cabinet maker for a tour bus customizing shop and a metal drummer at the same time. And I got laid off from my cabinet making job in 2009. And I was kind of forced to figure something out. And I had always had an interest in design and I like drawing and stuff. So I got into initially graphic design in Photoshop. And because I was in the band, I started doing our artwork. And then that kind of led to me doing the artwork for my band. And then somebody asked us how much I would charge if I would design their artwork. And it was like, wow, my light bulb moment was realizing I could make money doing something I enjoyed in a creative pursuit. So I mentioned that because that's when I started getting into design and then very quickly was asked about website design help with the church I was helping out with and some other people. And that was circa 2010. So Dreamweaver days for those who were around in web design back then. So I got into web design, graphic design, and then I did that for a decade. I was a proud solopreneur, freelance web designer until I could not do it all on my own anymore. And then started begrudgingly scaling my little studio and then loved it. And then built up a nice little multi-six-figure web design studio with remote contractors and started a family. And then that kind of led to me meeting the folks at Elegant Themes, who created Divi, which is the tool of choice that I use for WordPress. And then that's what kind of started my foray into teaching a little more and getting into a little bit of online marketing, because I didn't do online marketing as a web design agency owner. I was completely in-person networking group, meeting people in person. I literally did like no online marketing whatsoever. So it was a new ball game to me once I started opening my horizon to writing for Elegant Themes and then dipping my toe into tutorials, which I'll stop there. But that's kind of the progression of how I went from web designer to agency owner to this new world in online marketing.
Interesting. Okay. So I didn't even know about the cabinet maker stint. That's incredible. That's a great origin story.
I did that through, technically I started as a janitor because I worked there during high school. Yeah. After high school hours, I'd go in. So I was a janitor for this tour bus customizing shop, mainly because it was right next to my house, so I could walk there. And then I got my license and continued to work there. And after high school, I was like, I was really serious about the band in those days. So I was like, I'll go full-time cabinet making and did a lot of work on custom vehicles and tour buses and stuff like that, which all translates, by the way, to what I do now as a designer and a creative, like detail-oriented work like cabinetry. And then don't even get me started on how the music world translates to creative business, because there are so many parallels to being in a band and knowing how to work with people and knowing how to balance creativity, also marketing and business. So it all translated really well to me becoming a web designer.
This is why I ask these questions, because I always get these fascinating responses. Like you never would have guessed that. But again, like you said, when you step back and you look at it and you hear the story, it's like I could see it. It tracks. It makes sense. You just never know where life's going to take you. But your skills start to compound as you do whatever it is, and then you just find your way. So
well, it's funny too. Real quick on that, Mark. It's like I thought I was such a unique. I thought I was a unicorn going from the band to a graphic designer and a web designer. Come to find out, like I'd say probably honestly 70% of the people that I've met over the past 16 years in web design have come from a similar background of some sort of like video or photography or some sort of background, or musician is some sort of creative background that lends itself to, web design or any of these things.
I do want to kind of weave this a little bit. I feel like there's so many topics, there's so many different things that we could kind of go to, but you bring up a good point there, and I want to double click on it. It's a little abstract, but like you're bringing up a point where there's people that are photographers, videographers, even like musicians, and they found web design. And I think that we're in a very interesting time right now as we jump into 2026 here. You're saying that was 2010 to like 2020, roughly, agency years for you?
Yeah, exactly. I sold my agency in 2020 to go full-time teaching online courses and building what is now my personal brand and Web Designer Pro, which is my community today.
Yeah, I definitely want to I definitely want to dive into that. But over those 10 years of the teens, like the 20 teens, right? That was an interesting time. And I was just getting into like kind of WordPress and web design towards the end of that, because I was like 2017, 2018 is when I discovered it. I was like still working like a job like out of college there, and then I started. So a different timeline than you, but during that time, like I've said this before, in the WordPress community specifically, it's like you have a lot of people that were here kind of when it began, maybe in like the 2005 range or what have you, and then obviously people like pick it up during this whole timeline of like that 15-year period from like 2005 to 2020. But with you specifically and like seeing those people, I mean, do you think there's a reason? I'm trying to click on like that part that you said about why do you think people found WordPress, or not necessarily WordPress, but like web design in general? I mean, it was the new hotness, so to speak, right? In a way, like during that time, to a degree. Like, I mean, it was coming around right in the early 2000s. That was when kind of WordPress started, and you could kind of actually do something. But then I think when you're saying people are getting into web design, are you thinking like they're getting into like even Wix, Squarespace, and then obviously these other tools because it's becoming easier? Like that's how I think about the trajectory of technology, specifically in the web industry. That's really where Shopify is blowing up, and everything else is like coming to like a level of maturity or breaking out. Do you think a lot of that kind of attributed to people being like, I don't necessarily want to do just videography or photography anymore. Everybody wants websites. So now maybe that's an opportunity.
I think that's part of it. I think it's also the true fact that all roads lead to websites. Like if you do any online marketing, it's going to lead to your website. And it was very different back in circa 2009, 2010, when you could get by in some ways, maybe with just having like a Facebook page as a business, but very quickly, especially I think with so many different avenues online to have different social media presence and all these different places, like you have to have a home. I think that's really what it is, Mark. It's truthfully what a website is a digital home. And through those years in particular, I mean, honestly, like back in 2009, 2010, there wasn't near as many social media platforms as there are today. The internet wasn't as scattered as it is today. So as it started to expand and get bigger and bigger and more disjointed, you needed to have some sort of, like a hub, like a home. So I think that's truthfully like the core, the root reason as to why so many things led to web design, and why subsequently a lot of people, whether they wanted to or not, got into web design, which that was my case. I didn't get into web design because I was like, ooh, I really like design. I think I'm gonna be a web designer. I got into it because so many people were like, thanks for helping me with this graphic design piece. Do you do websites? Do you do websites? Do you do websites? Do you do websites? So I think that was, my story was similar to a lot of other creatives, whether it's a music background, photography, videography, where you work with somebody, they like working with you, there's trust, there's likability there. So naturally they're going to be like, well, what else do you do? Can you help me with my website? I think that's truthfully what was going on in those years. And it is still true today.
Do you think that it is fully, so I was kind of like my thought too, like I was a little late to the party, so to speak, just based on like my trajectory with my, my age. I was, coming out of college in 2018. I was like, okay, I like building websites. I think that is kind of a cool thing. I wasn't really the design background necessarily, but I wanted my first thing was like, I wanted a place for me. Like I wanted my personal brand. I wanted to kind of like tell people about what I'm doing and things like that. And that's kind of the reason, not really a blog, but ultimately just kind of a place to share information. And I think that that idea of your website being your kind of like your digital hub or your digital home has always resonated with me. And I'm wondering now, do you see, I'm going to jump ahead for a second. Do you see, because you're like you're on the pulse of this a little bit because you deal with a lot of, and we're going to dive into this more, but like you deal with a lot of different people that literally, kind of they're in your community. They rely on you for coaching. They rely on you for insight of like everything, where everything's going. Do you feel that anything has changed or is on the precipice of changing as far as like general societal and user behavior on how is a huge loaded question, I know, but where things are headed here? Because I've seen this, I've made some personal decisions to kind of like pivot slightly, but like I was really burning to ask you this question because like, is there anything that you're kind of dipping your toes in or thinking about where you feel like the actual internet and the world is headed with how vastly it has changed in even the last 5 years since you've got out of, the agency world?
Well, in relation to websites, would you say, Mark? Because we can
start there.
I mean, Here's as I'm thinking about this and really reflecting on the past 15 years in particular. So let's just go, we'll say like 2009-ish. I love that you asked this question because it just made me visualize why so many people got into web design between 2009, 10 to 2015, 16. And I think it's because prior to that, you had to be a developer to make a website. You just had to. Even if you're even Dreamweaver or Front Page or some of the other builders, you had to know HTML and CSS pretty good to make it legitimate. So you had to be a developer. And that was a very small margin of people who wanted to do that and had the skill sets to do that. With the rise of WordPress, other CMSs like Joomla and Drupal, there was kind of the bridge between becoming more visual. And then boom, you got Divi, you got Elementor, you got other visual builders that rocked the world back in 2013, 14, 15, which allowed people like myself who were more visually minded to be a web designer, not being developer first. And sorry, Kevin Geary, if he's watching this, because I know that's going to make him, reel in his skin. But that's just the reality of the industry. It was like visual designer people got into web design and had the tool. So the web design industry shifted significantly through those years because of that. And then inevitably that brought in the DIY crowd, which completely just screwed everything up because DIYers are, you got developers, you got designers, and then, heaven forbid, you got DIYers, which are just, you could give them the perfect template, you could give them the perfect AI tool today, and they will still completely ruin a website and just destroy it. So that was what was interesting about the DIY. And I'm saying all this because I think that leads us to today where you've got developer, designer, DIYers. Now it's like, what I'm seeing is a lot of web design companies are actually moving away from DIYers. They're trying to create a hands-off tool, like an AI tool or a builder that will just let a DIY person, quote unquote, set something up. And for web designers and agency owners, SEOers, I think where things are right now in web design is we're kind of at a mix of all of it, honestly. But the added thing in there that I see in the horizon is a little more, I'll say marketing, but it's kind of more like business consultant. For a lot of my members of Web Designer Pro, which is the coaching community that I run and I founded, most of the members who are top performing and really killing it, they are viewed as more of like a digital marketer, consultant for their clients. And websites are obviously the main thing they're doing, but they also may be doing SEO plans or growth plans or maintenance plans at scale if they have a six-figure business. So I think that's where things are now and where they're headed is, as a web designer, learn web design, feel good with your tool stack, train your clients, empower them, not necessarily to be a DIYer, but if they want some semblance of access, there's probably some gap in between there. And then it's really a matter of like, how can you help your clients with the ever evolving scatteredness of online come to their website and bring all that together? I don't know if that answers the question, Mark, but that's, as I'm like trying to visualize the past 15 years, that's kind of where I've personally seen things go and evolve from.
Well, I think it answers it perfectly, especially from your perspective, because again, that's the reason that, like I said earlier, I talk to people now from all different kind of like varying levels of experience and background. And, again, your track record is literally that you transitioned into the space, you built a successful agency over a decade, and then you I'll call graduated, but you pivoted again. I mean, like you sold an agency and you're like, okay, well, now I have all this knowledge and now I'm going to essentially leverage the knowledge and sell that either, via, and I want to talk about that specifically because that's somewhere where I'm headed now too. And that trajectory, I've seen it in different patterns in different industries where it's like you build something and then you can teach it, and you can teach it with not just like assumed authority, but also like backed experience and achievement, so to speak, right? Because you did it and then you could do that. So no, it makes sense. And I mean, the reason I asked that question is because you have 15 years of experience in this now, and you have been, your finger has been on the pulse of it. So you can, like everything you said there, maybe somebody has a different perspective, but it's literally objectively pretty close to the actual truth. So
and I
appreciate that.
Just to put a cap on that out of like the past 15 years, the reason I mentioned where things are now and the evolution is because back in 2010 to 15, when I was coming up, you could just be a web designer and be fine. Like, like clients, they would ask me if I helped out with social media, but I'd be like, no, I don't do that. And of course they would go elsewhere for more advanced SEO or marketing. But now I think it's definitely the harsh reality for web designers is it is more than just building a website, which has been the case for a long time. I mean, even when I was, back in like 2015, I partnered with an SEO guy and we started doing SEO, like advanced SEO ongoing plans. That was my growth plan, quote unquote, back in those days. So, I mean, things truthfully haven't changed like that much from what you could do. It's just now I think clients especially are viewing web designers as truly like a webmaster. You're kind of in between being a webmaster, like knowing all the technical, development stuff, design stuff, and a web marketer to some extent. And I don't want that to be overwhelming, but I think of like, if you're serious about, having a web designer title, you really got to get ready and prepared for being a web strategist, web marketer. Luckily, you don't need to go too far into the technical side of things now, and you can always partner up with people to handle that. Like if you don't want to do DNS and email and domain stuff, you don't have to. You can absolutely hire that out, especially if you join my community, Web Designer Pro, because that's like what it's there for. It's like you focus on your lane, you can find partners to fill the gaps that you don't want to do. So
yeah. I want us to dive into that, and I think probably a good way to do that is to dive into a little bit of the community stuff, because I want to hear about your experience so far with this, because I am right on the precipice. I probably could have done this potentially earlier just based on my like skill set, but I haven't done it for whatever reason, like limiting beliefs or what have you. So I want to dive into the community side, and we'll kind of blend this conversation a little bit. I want to talk to you about your actual experience running community coaching, and I kind of have like a mental framework that I could kind of interpret, and you can describe like of what you have going on now with under the personal brand and under Web Designer Pro and everything. And then I also want to kind of come back to a little bit of that about, we'll tie it specifically to the people you're talking to all the time though, right? Like those people in the community, like how you're steering them moving forward, like the insights now versus maybe a few years ago, that type of thing. So with that lay of the land here, sounds like, again, 2010 to 2020, you were running the agency, sold the agency, moved into this new thing. So let's maybe start right there. What was that transition actually like? Did you have the idea that you were going to go this route? I think I remember you telling me one time you like stayed on a little bit as an advisor. What was that transition like from agency owner to more content creator? I know you'd been doing that, but also just like everything that you're doing.
It started as a course creator essentially, because in 2016, I found out that the content manager of Elegant Themes, the creators of Divi, lived in Columbus. So I took him out for coffee, just talk shop. I had absolutely no hidden agenda when I met with him. I have always been truthfully a community builder at heart. And I think that's really important. Like keep that in the back of your mind when we get into the community stuff, because that is a deal breaker. If you're not a community builder at heart, do not start a community. So just keep that in mind, because as I
can you elaborate specifically on what you mean by a community builder? Like it makes sense to me, but like, what do you actually like doing?
I like connecting with people. I like pairing people up. I like organizing friends. And I just like, I think back, and I did this during the band days. I did this in high school. I'd be like, oh, you would like this guy or this guy. Like you guys should, I've always liked being a bit of a, I don't know. I don't want to say matchmaker, but I do like building community, a community of people and to some extent. And even in my band, like I was not the founder. I was kind of the second guy in, and I helped bring in like the other members and connected a lot of people. And that was a community building experience being in the band as well. So all that to say, I've always enjoyed that. Even when I started being a web designer, I founded a local networking group that became like 50% of my leads came from my networking group, which I helped found. So I have always been a community builder at heart. So naturally, like I got to a point where I also really enjoy the build, learn, build, teach model. So you learn something, you teach it, or you learn something, you build it, and then you teach it. So when I started really becoming pretty successful with my web design business, and I met Nathan, the content manager of Elegant Themes at the time, I just let him know what I was up to. And he said, dude, would you like to contribute to our blog at Elegant Themes? It was huge at the time, still is big today, but really, really big back then. I was like, absolutely. So essentially they asked if I would be open to sharing what I was learning about running a 6-figure Divi business. And I did on the Elegant Themes blog. And then I got a ton of notoriety in that specific community in WordPress and Divi. And so that planted the seed for me to be like, I really enjoy teaching, and I love helping people build their business and see this. So, initially my thought was to be like a child theme creator and sell templates for Divi and do very web design specific stuff. But then I realized so many people were asking me for like courses about the different tools I was using and everything. So that's what kind of planted the seed for me to try out courses. So I launched my first course in 2018, which was my website maintenance plan course, because I had built up recurring revenue with my maintenance plan. Huge part of my business. It's also what carried us through a 56-day NICU experience when we had our first daughter, my special needs kiddo. And I've been very public about this, that, yeah, like literally when we had her in the April of 2018, I don't know what we would have done if we didn't have our maintenance plan, because that was our guaranteed recurring revenue through those 2 months of living at the hospital, basically. So when I came out of that, I was like, you know what? I could do a Divi course, but I was like, I'm just so passionate about building recurring revenue. So I did the maintenance plan course, and that took off for me. And we had over 80 students in the first round. I made like $10,000, and that opened my mind up to be like, oh my gosh, let's do this again. I love this. I'm teaching. And I was also still running my agency at this time. So it started off as a passion project, honestly, Mark. It was like, let me dip my toe into these waters. I had started scaling my agency a little bit in the way of like, I wasn't doing all the work at that point. I just started hiring out a little design help and development help. So I had a little more free time to be able to build this passion project up under joshhall.co and start to do courses. And then once I'm an all in guy. So once I started doing courses, I'm like, I'm all in. And I had this idea of like a suite of courses that Josh from 10 years ago needed to know to get to a 6-figure range. And that's actually still the core curriculum that I have today, which is a mix of design, SEO, DNS, and business side, which is business, recurring revenue, and scaling. And so I started building those courses out. And then, that got to a point where I was making much more in courses than I was in my design business. And I got to that point in 2020 where I was like, I could try to get myself out of all the additional roles I'm fulfilling in my agency, but I just knew how much time that would take. And I'm such a like one business at a time kind of guy that I was like, I think I want to just go all in on courses. This was also in 2020 when COVID hit and everyone was going online. I mean, my course sales went zoop as soon as COVID hit because there was so much demand for people wanting to learn online business. So I just went all in on that. And I actually sold in transit to one of my students who was killing it. And just got comfortable with him. And then I knew he was very entrepreneurial and I felt comfortable. And so the sale of In Transit Studios, my agency, was not sexy by any means. It's actually still going on. It's over a 10-year period. I basically am a consultant for them and I get paid quarterly based off of the percentage that we agreed to. So there's a certain mark that I'll hit. And if we hit it before 10 years, awesome. We should. So that's kind of way that worked. And then I went full in on courses and then shortly after that, community.
Nice. Okay. All right. Appreciate that transition context there. Cause that's, I don't know how many people, I mean, you probably have better data on this than me. I don't know how many people necessarily are going to have to sell their agency and make a deal like that in their lifetime. I mean, maybe some will, maybe some won't. Hopefully more do than don't, obviously, right? I mean, that they've built that up and they can move on to the next piece of what it is. I think one question that always comes to mind here is, and maybe again, you can kind of see this potentially from all the people that you've interacted with, you've taught, and just in the space in general. What do you feel like is, I think there's a lot of people out there, and I'm, again, partially is from personal experience, people out there that they can build and they have a skill and they've built their business around a certain skill, like, again, web design or what have you, and they're making money selling that as a service. However, I imagine you've run across some people that are actually probably better at learning. Yours is, I was laughing because yours was learn, build, and teach. Mine is like learn, try, and share. So it's like, very similar. So it's like, there's probably people that are like better at that, so to speak, than they are at like running a business and like more passionate about it than trying to go find leads to actually do that skill. Have you found, it seems like maybe, I'm not saying that, I'm not putting you in that camp, but it sounds like that is something that you're kind of, that's your main passion now and something that has worked well for you. Is there any self-awareness that you feel like you had to have around that period that was like, you know what, maybe it was just like, oh, this is just making more money, so to speak, or something like that. But like, would you say it's more of your passion to build these communities, teach and everything than it is to actually go run an agency? Like money aside necessarily, obviously money's important, but like, let's say they're making the same amount of money and they were going to make the same amount of money forever. Would you still like doing what you're doing now more than you liked doing the agency work? Yes.
And that's because I like teaching and community building more than doing service work. And this is a really important distinction. I'm glad you brought this up, Mark, because I think there's actually a lot of people that I've seen try to build a community and try to do online courses when in actuality, they would prefer to just do services or build products. And the self-awareness thing that you hit on, that is crucial. And this is why I started this kind of, this journey with my trajectory with the thought and the reminder that I am a community builder at heart. So I love what I do now more than anything. And important to note too, I was not burned out as a web designer and an agency owner. I was kind of in the beginning of scaling when I started courses. So I could have continued to do that for another 10 years at least and been really content and happy. Like I really enjoyed it. I still miss some of my clients every once in a while. I miss doing a sales meeting. I miss going to networking events, and I miss like a really good client and, really like I do miss that sometimes, but because I'm wired the way I am, I just absolutely love teaching. And this actually, I skipped over this, but I had started when I just started kind of getting to six figures in my agency. There was a local high school that had a mentor program for like tech students. And I would go in maybe once a quarter and sit with a couple of students and share about my design business. And it was like a mentor program. And most of them were interested in like game design, but a few of them were fascinated by what I was up to. And they were like, you build websites and you make like 100,000. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, and you work from home? I'm like, yeah, it is pretty freaking awesome. You're right. And I loved teaching those students who were like all about it and soaking up everything I had to say. So that was actually what planted the seed even more, was like, man, it's cool to do this like in person on a little scale of 2 people. What if I were to do this, on a much bigger scale? So that's really important, because I do think a lot of people, for me, Mark, it was not about the higher earning potential. I mean, that was a nice factor to it for sure, but the reality is a lot of people, I think, chase money, and they're doing work that they are just not aligned and self-aware to do sustainably for the long term. So for me, it was an easy transition to go full-time into teaching and then subsequently community building, because that's truthfully what I love to do more than anything. I enjoyed the services. I enjoyed working with clients. I enjoyed helping them build their business, but I definitely like helping Joss of 10 years ago way more.
Yeah, definitely good insight there. Would you say that most of the people that you now teach that are in your communities, in your programs, I do want you to lay that out a little bit more too, because I'm interested to see like what your full, I know you have, I don't know if you have multiple circles or what the situation is, but I know you have like coaching, you have community, you have courses. I've seen it all. I was looking very deeply. I was doing some deep research on the Circle Discover. I think you probably submitted to that. It's all, I saw your face in there multiple times. Do you think that most of the people that you're teaching now, like obviously they're trying to scale their business. Do you see anything with them when you're talking to them day to day where is it a lot of people that are definitely like still in the trenches, they're trying to scale, or have you developed, as a random off the cuff question, do you have an eye now to see, oh man, maybe this person's going to break out a little bit more as like an educator at some point rather than just a service provider?
I can tell almost immediately who is what I call a webpreneur, which is like, you're going to be, I actually, Alexia, who's one of our Rockstar Web Designer Pro members, she's actually on retainer with me now as brand strategist and designer. She's in pro, and she is scale her business very quickly and grown it like wildfire, unsurprisingly. And I told her, because she was like, I actually think I could get into like community building one day. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I could tell immediately the way she talked and the way she connected inside of pro. Like there are just people who are a good fit to be more so than just a service provider. And I should say, neither one is wrong or right or better than the other. And they each come with pros and cons. Like there are some times where I'm like, sometimes I do wish I was just a service provider and just worked for clients and could just turn off my brain and just call it a day. But God bless the people who are wired like that, because you're not like that. Like there are people that it's not better or worse. It's just different. So I can tell very quickly, whether someone is going to be destined for more than just being a web designer, web strategist. They're probably going to be some sort of community builder in their own right, or mentor, or something outside of just being an agency owner or studio owner.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I have, I've kind of struggled with to kind of like self-identify myself. I think that I appreciate you saying that, because like I think that that's kind of much more of the track that I'm headed on. But those have been the things that I've been thinking about heavily and trying to move towards, again, whether it's like time in the trenches or limiting beliefs or whatever like that. I think that it's cool that you're able to, again, with the people that you work with on a day-to-day, you're able to kind of like spot that out, because I feel like sometimes people just kind of like even need that to just be like, you probably like, you're good at things, but like you're probably like actually better at this. And maybe if you just have a little bit more self-reflection, self-awareness, you probably realize that like you could actually scale this other thing probably way more if you just kind of leaned into it, just because, again, not because it's right or wrong objectively, it's just right for you. It's more right for you than the other one.
It's a biggie too, because with people who are multi-passioned, like we would, like we like to do a lot of different things at once, or we're like, oh, like in the case of Alexia, I know she would love to build a community today, but I've advised her, and she knows, and she's self-aware about the fact that like she has to build her business up and make it stable before jumping into a passion project. Because I think the challenge that folks like you, folks like me, and other people who have all these like different, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that, I want to do that. You can't build anything steadily. Like you can't stabilize any of those if you're doing them all at once. Like you have to build a strong foundation with one. You have to, have like one strong vine to hold on to before you start grabbing other vines. Otherwise, you're just going to go falling down. So, for me, as I look back, I'm glad that I stuck to like building my web design business for 7-8 years to get it to scale up a little bit, and then finally sold it at 10 years. And the same is true now. Like I started my course creator business, got that to a multi-6-figure level, then added the community component, and then eventually wrapped it all into what we have now in Web Designer Pro, which is everything that I do, which is a little pro tip for anyone who has a lot of different passions, is like, if you can get it all under one umbrella, it's pretty cool, because now I can do courses, community, coaching, podcasting, YouTube, sponsorships, all under technically Web Designer Pro. So I've kind of found a nice little sweet spot with like scratching the itch of a bunch of other entrepreneurial endeavors to keep it under Web Designer Pro. Now, I don't want to take us too far ahead, but like right now I'm getting hit up for so much community building questions, and I could absolutely start like a community builder side of the business, and that's not going to go in Web Designer Pro. But I also am self-aware and I've done this long enough to know that I'm not ready to like start a whole new passion project right now, because I'm still solidifying pro even more and more. I also have 3 young kids, one with special needs, and a wife that I don't want to take much time away from. And I've struck a really nice lifestyle freedom business here. So that's the challenge. Just heads up for anybody who gets to this point where it's like, you absolutely could start another passion project, but I know that like, that's just going to add, 20 hours more a week probably that I'm going to pull away from my family, and maybe pull emphasis and focus away from pro, which I can't do at this point. So I forget, I think I took us off on a tangent, but those are some things I've learned as like a multi-passionate, interested entrepreneur. Because, we could go like you, Mark, you could build an agency, you could be a designer, you could be a mentor, you could do coaching, you're doing your podcasting, you're doing YouTube, like you could do all these different things that could be their own separate businesses potentially. So I've had to reel that in and tried to keep it under one umbrella-ish. Yeah.
I'm right there with you, man. I totally hear what you're saying. You said something really interesting there, where you were like, it's like multi-layered inception. It's like you become like, some people probably like they become a designer, maybe they work for somebody, and then they start their own business, like freelancing or doing their own thing. I know that necessarily wasn't exactly your trajectory, but then like you're in the agency realm, right? For 10 years. And then you're like, okay, now I'm going to teach people about what I taught them in my last cycle, which was building websites and building a business. Now it looks like you could eventually pivot again to, it's just getting more and more inception-y. Now you're teaching people about how to build communities, and maybe it's even teaching people how to build web design communities. It's just amazing. But like, I mean, the thing is like,
but it's so hard because I have to stop myself. Like, I mean, like I bought communityking.com just to have it. I literally bought that. I own that domain. I was like, I wonder because somebody called me. They're like, you're like the community king. And I was like, ooh. I wonder if that's available. Like that. And it was. So I literally have that domain, and I don't know if I'm going to use that, but like I bought it just in case, because like I would love to because I like to share what I'm doing right now, just like you. And yeah, I'd love to do that, but I know like that's going to derail me or take me away from my family, and I'm not at a place to do that right now. Real quick, just side note. you asked about like the signs of somebody who's destined for more than just being a service provider. A lot of it is the openness to share, by the way. If you're somebody who feels comfortable sharing, and it doesn't mean you like need to share every, revenue number. But if you often share wins and successes and stories and what you're doing and what's working, then it's probably safe to say you're going to do more than just be a service provider.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. The whole thing. Yeah. I mean, the inception-ish part of it is just funny, but it's not, I'm making a joke because it is funny when you step back and you look at it, but ultimately it's not really that surprising. It's like, I was stuck in this for a while, and I think a lot of other people probably are stuck in it too, is that you think that you start a web design business or you start any sort of business, and you think just naturally, I think as humans, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life just because you're in the present and you're just thinking about that. And it's like, well, no, you don't have to plan the rest of your life, but don't feel trapped that you have to do it for the rest of your life either, because you're probably going to evolve. I honestly feel like, again, I don't want to make this about me, but I only have my personal experience to pull from, like, extremely, extremely like specifically. And it's like, I started it, and I did projects, and I got to a stable, like recurring revenue type style income, because I never took any projects that I didn't have the website care plan for and stuff. So I like thought immediately, it's okay, we need some recurring revenue. We need that, the MRR. And then at a certain point I was like, literally the reason I started making YouTube videos was because I was watching other people, I was learning from them. And then I started to listen to them a little bit more. I was like, you know what? I actually don't necessarily agree with everything they're saying. I've found, not like I could totally disagree, but it's like, I think there's actually different ways to do things that I've found on my own in my agency, on my client projects, that I would also like to share. I think that was, if you go back and you look at the trajectory of the YouTube channel, it's probably right around the time I was just talking about, I was learning more. And then naturally I get curious about, is there more things that I can bring to this conversation publicly? And again, I use myself as the example, but I think if other people are like that and they find themselves doing that, that is actually like a really big sign, like you're saying, that you're probably not meant to just stay directly in the trenches of doing it. Again, no problem if you want to stay there, but if you're naturally inclined to like learn, try and share, learn, build and teach, like whatever it is, then your next evolution is probably going to be a little bit removed from the actual service and a little bit more in like a role where you're higher up, you're thinking, you're strategizing, you're either delegating it to other people, potentially AI in the future, et cetera, whatever. And you're telling people how to do that more than just like taking in requests and then doing them for clients or for whoever. For sure. Because there's a lot to that, just because if you're somebody who is entrepreneurial, you're going to want to do other stuff. And what I would say is like, step one is to just build a secure, stable business up. And you're going to have to shelve your entrepreneurial, I want to do this and this and this feelings. You have to delayed gratification, wait for it. Like you almost have to earn the ability to like do a bunch of different things. You have to make your main business stable. You have to, whatever's going to fill the bank account, you have to focus on that. And in most cases, it's service-based business is the easiest way to get to the first level of that. Doesn't mean you're probably going to be like multi-six-figure wealthy yet, but you definitely need to have a like stable foundation. So build a business and then scale it to the point where you can basically have the time and freedom to experiment and to build passion projects and to open up different wings of the business or whatever you want to do. Because I think what is different with entrepreneurs from most people is the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, does not apply to us. It is a bullshit question from elementary that, like if you like, and what's interesting is like a generation above us, Mark, I'll still put you in, my age group. I'm 39 now, but it was our parents' generation to where like pretty much everyone had the same job forever until they retired. That was it. That is not the case anymore. And even outside of online entrepreneurship, people shift and change jobs quite a bit. But if you're a firefighter, it's unlikely you're not going to be a firefighter, or you're going to do that and maybe have a side business one day. Like you're probably going to do that most of your time. But in online business, you are a multifaceted person. Even as a service provider, as a web designer, it's going to evolve, just like we talked about from the outset. You're kind of probably going to be more of a digital strategist at some point. So
I think that's really important to be prepared for, and just to basically know when to like hold your passion back, because you have got to fill your bank account and you have to have a stable business before you go over here and over here and over here and over here. So yeah, as I'm thinking about it, I mean, that's just like, it's so crucial for entrepreneurs who have a lot of different passions and a lot of different ways they want to go, is to embrace delayed gratification. And then you get to a point where like, I built my course business to 6 figures really quickly because I had built up a 6-figure business and I learned a lot over 8 years before I started doing courses. So the good news is, like, once you learn a lot of this stuff, you'll get to a point where you can build pretty quickly and make 6-figure wings of your business. Like we talked about leading up to this in DM, you listen to my sponsorship chat with Justin, and I told him, I'm like, I'm really not interested in sponsorships unless it's 6 figures, because I know that's going to pull me away from, multi 6-figure wings of my business. So, you get to a point where it's like, okay, you can basically do passion projects that are successful at a level that make it worth it once you have a stable business behind you.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah. I think I want to go back here for a second. So we've talked a lot about the reality of, like, people in the community, people that you've dealt with, et cetera. We were talking a little bit about how you made that transition, and I think you've kind of said it, but more specifically, you started with the web maintenance course, jumped right out of the gate, was awesome. Did you start, tell me the trajectory from 2010 to now. Did you go, it sounds like I could be wrong. You had courses. You didn't have community at first.
Right.
There's like this whole thing. Okay. So now this is like, again, a selfish question, but also for people out there that are kind of like us that want to move into this realm or potentially like eyeing it at some point, right? Talk to those people directly about the trajectory here, because it's now a whole new frontier of business. I've learned this over the last month with just launching my first course yesterday on Circle. But like, there's like multiple different like actual pieces to this. We can go deeper into the sales stuff in a second, but ultimately, I feel like there's good ways to do it, bad ways to do it, and then just like so or whatever. It feels like you should not actually just launch a community randomly out of the blue with no following or anything like that, because nobody's going to come to that. There's no inherent value to a community, even though a lot of the AI guys that I follow in the past year would tell you that you need to have like some sort of value there, regardless of what industry you're in. You need to have like the courses there and then potentially turn that into a membership. I'm just interested in what your trajectory was. I imagine you sold that first course at like a dollar figure, like maybe a lifetime access or something.
Yeah.
And then you moved into more courses. And then at some point, maybe you bundled them all and put the community aspect, or that community aspect is separate. And then I know probably you layered on coaching. So what was that whole thing like?
So the first course, it was $297 lifetime access. Second course was my Divi CSS course, $297 lifetime access. Important thing is I already had my YouTube channel. I was already blogging for Elegant Themes. I had already started a Divi Facebook group at that point too. That's another thing I completely left out. I had started what is still today the second largest Divi Facebook group, which was my first foray into like building an online community. So I had started, I had authority, I had an audience, so it made it easier for me to grow my courses. And then, like I mentioned, I was like, you know what? I really am enjoying courses. What I needed to know 10 years ago was like these certain areas. I needed to have a process. I needed the basic of design, SEO, basics of DNS, and then I needed to learn how to build business, get clients, build recurring revenue. So I had this idea for 9 courses. It was my initial suite of courses. So I just chipped away at building those between 2018, 19, and 20. And basically like every quarter or so, I would have a course come out, and it was all lifetime access. And then once 2020 hit and I really wanted to take that more seriously and take it to the next level, I knew even before I sold my agency that I wanted to have another recurring revenue stream and also have some semblance of, I didn't know what it was. It was a very muddy idea of like community or coaching or something, because I had a lot of students who were in all the courses, and some of them would give me updates and I'm like, oh my gosh, my courses are like changing people's lives. But I didn't know that unless I prompted them to reach out, or like basically the problem with just doing courses is unless you're getting testimonials and really serious about getting research from them and following up with them, you just don't know what impact you're making. So when I went full time with it, I mean, I started what is now Web Designer Pro 3 months after I sold my agency. It was immediate into a coaching community, which at that point I made that available. It was initially called the Web Design Club. And I basically said, I'm going to create a coaching community. And I initially offered it to all my students. It was just to my students at first. I was like, you got my courses. If you want to go further, if you want to meet other students and go to the next level and get coaching with me, I have this thing called the Web Design Club. It launched in the fall of 2020. So at that point, my courses were separate. They were one-time access, like lifetime access over at joshhall.co. And then I started what was initially called the Web Design Club on Circle. And then that just became everything. I absolutely loved being a community builder. And then this was my first time into like coaching, because I had people DMing me, members who were getting coaching with me. We were doing weekly coaching calls. And then I realized I actually have a pretty good knack for coaching, just because I'm seeing what's working. I know my experience. I think as a coach now, because I'm a lifestyle guy, I'm not your typical coach, quite honestly. Like most coaches are like your realtor, like bropreneurs who are just from a different world that I came from. I'm a very chill, gonna shoot it straight to you, gonna try to make you laugh. Probably we're gonna have a good time kind of coach. Semi-unprofessional most of the time. So like our coaching calls are notoriously like, I wouldn't say that probably publicly. But I attracted people who liked having a lifestyle, fun web design business. So I really, really enjoyed that. And then for 2 years, I had coaching and community on the side, built that up slowly while selling my courses one-off. And then when Circle came out with the LMS feature and could have courses inside of Circle, immediately, I think I put my courses in there like 2 weeks after they launched that feature. So it wasn't even out of beta. And I was like, let's do it. We're going all in. Moved all my courses over to Circle. You could still purchase them on joshhall.co if you just wanted lifetime access for a while. But pretty quickly, I realized, okay, the people who are getting the results, they have my courses. They've at least gone through the core curriculum and know my style, know what I recommend. They're engaged in the community and they're getting coaching with me. It was the power of courses, community coaching. And that's what built Web Designer Pro. And then eventually when I added the courses, I didn't love the name Web Design Club. It was kind of a filler name. So I don't even remember how I came up with Web Designer Pro. Oh, it was because I was going to call it Pro Josh Hall Co. But then I was like, how am I going to say that? That's weird. Like Go Pro. Do you want to be a Josh Hall Pro? It just sounded weird. And then I was like, who do I help web designers? Web Designer Pro. I was like, well, surely that has to be taken. And no, the domain was $5,000, which I did purchase. I did invest in it, but I got it. I got webdesignerpro.com. The trademark just went through last year officially. So boom, Web Designer Pro it was. So that was kind of the transition from being course and then going membership. Now I've been really public and open about this. It was a son of a bitch of a transition in 23, because I essentially went from selling a lot of one-off courses to going membership model, which is great, but memberships are MRR, monthly recurring revenue, and it is a slow and steady up and to the right, ideally, which meant I went from selling like a lot of one-off courses and the bundle of all my courses to slow and steady up and to the right, which is great now. I just posted recently that 2025 was my best year to date. You can see the trajectory, but it was very precarious in 23 because my main wing of revenue at that point essentially went to almost nothing when I moved from course sales to membership. So I probably would have done a few things differently in that window, but it worked out. It worked out. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So you were selling lifetime access to them at first, and then I imagine when you moved, you gave those people still like access to whatever they had, but then ultimately anything new or any completely new people they had to purchase just into the membership.
Yeah. To this day, I still have the original versions of all those courses on joshhall.co using LearnDash. So like anybody who got lifetime access can have that. This year, I plan to completely shut that all off, but I'll probably just make those courses available as a download. That way, if there's any stragglers who are still over there, they can download, the videos and stuff. But yeah, then it moved from lifetime access to the membership, and it went pretty dang well, all considered. There were some people who were like, oh, I got lifetime access to the course, and I wanted to have, because I had a student center at that time as well, just to answer questions. And there were some people that were a little upset by that, but they still had access to the course, lifetime access. And overall, like overwhelmingly, I'd say like 99.9%, it went awesome, moving from courses to membership. And it just made sense too, because it was working for people.
Yeah. I think in that realm, I'm dipping my toes in. I have a lot of secondhand experience, but now I'm dipping into firsthand experience, and it's gone well so far. But like, I think the reality of the situation is that if you just look at it from a business perspective, which we're dealing with business people, right? We're not necessarily dealing with consumers in this sense. I mean, they're consumers of our content, but they're other business owners. So they should, theoretically understand you can't sell somebody lifetime access to somebody and then support them forever.
Exactly.
Contrary to what happens in WordPress all the time with these products. You can't,
right. You're so
you can't
right.
do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That's not viable. So, that's interesting that and it's awesome that you got to that model too, because I feel like it's what a lot of different people do, again, in different industries. But ultimately, it's like, if you're paying me regularly, I mean, there's a simple analogy too. It's like your clients are paying you regularly if you're, following the web maintenance course and everything like that, right? Your clients are paying you regularly to make sure their website's up to date, secure, all that sort of stuff. You wouldn't do that if they just paid you, a couple $1,000s to build the website and never paid you anything again.
Exactly,
why would you do that forever?
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine for any WordPress designer who is mad about, having a recurring subscription for support. Yeah. Just put yourself in those shoes. If you sold something for $297 to a client and then they just expect to be able to email you forever and they want a monthly call forever. Like, no, that's not how it goes. It's not feasible. Unless it's just a passion project and you just want to do stuff for free, but that's probably not the case. So I would say for anyone who is in this, like maybe course, maybe community, maybe membership type of model, what I would do is, you said it, Mark, do not rush into doing a community, because community is a whole other ball game. I personally think, even though I love it and still love it, it is the hardest thing to sell and the hardest thing to continue to run, because it's all encompassing. Community is just people. It's just a lot of different people. And that's hard. That's very, very hard. You have to be wired to be a community builder if you're going to have a successful community. So what I would do personally is to have a course or a few courses and do it in a cohort style, to where maybe they get lifetime access to the material, but support, community, those are a different billing process. Amy Porterfield has notoriously done this really well, because I joined one of her courses. I still have lifetime access to the course that's updated, but you got a year of free support, which were basically just like a monthly Zoom call that you could tune into with her. And then after that year, it was $297 to do that, to get access to that per year. So what I would do if I were doing that today, and what I wish I would have done then, was you buy a lifetime course and then you get, maybe a year of support. And then after a year, it's $297 or whatever it is for support. Only if I wasn't doing a full-blown community. That's how I would go about that. You could always also do the cohort style, which is like a 6-week sprint type of thing. And you get the course and community/support for like 6 weeks or 90 days or whatever it is. And then it's over. And then that's actually, for anyone interested in building a community, do that first. Do like a 90-day or a 6-week cohort style experience, which is going to replicate what you would do as a community builder, and then see if you like it. Because if you do that and you're like, oh my God, I'm sick of the questions, I just really don't care. Then you're probably like a service guy or a product person or a marketing person, and you're not, you're probably just not suited to be a community builder, and that's fine. So just some tips that I wish I would have done then to make that transition into building a true community even easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely good insight there. I might have to take that myself, because I'm rapidly approaching that situation. I got a question for you about, it's a tougher question, at least tough for me. Maybe you've already thought of it though. Okay. So you build, like anybody builds an agency, realize that they want to pivot into this realm that we've been talking about here, right? And then now you're going to teach the thing that you did, for those amount of years. How do you like keep your knowledge and your experience fresh when you are no longer in the industry that you are now consulting, coaching, et cetera, whatever, teaching on? Like, do you feel like there's like a limit to that? Do you feel like how has that played out at all for you? Like, what is, maybe like you're running a community for 10 years and then somebody comes and sees and says, hey, what about this thing? It's like, how do you just stay tapped in to the things that the people in your community, whatever the case is, doesn't have to be web design, obviously, whatever it is, because everyone has this problem. How do you stay tapped into that?
It's a great question because I get asked it a lot, and I'm there right now. To the actual reality is I have not built a website for a client since 2018. Now, I've overseen projects up until 2020 when I sold, but I have actually not like start to finish built a client site since 2018. So you would think like, yeah, at this point in 2026, are you completely out of the game? Are you, like, I understand the like cynicism about that, or like the skepticism about that. But here's what I've realized. I am 1,000 times more valuable and powerful as a coach in web design, because not only do I have my experience, but I also have retained the kind of consultant role for In Transit. So I get updates from Eric, my CEO, and at any point I can dip in and see like, hey, how are we doing maintenance plans? How are we doing support for the maintenance plans? What do the growth plans look like? What are you doing in marketing and web design? So I have like, literal like behind the scenes on all of that. And I'm overseeing hundreds of web designers who are in different stages and have different models. And I perhaps know the fastest route to success for web designers now, because I can pinpoint where someone's at, what their goals are, what model is going to work best for them, potentially even what tool set will work for them, and then help them get there with the support and coaching that they need. I need to put that on the sales page, by the way. But truthfully, Mark, it's a great question, because I had those reservations myself. I'm like, how long can I go not building websites to teach, websites? But the reality is like, I'm seeing so much more. I have a pulse in a very unique position that I don't take for granted. Also, I have the #1 podcast in web design business podcast. So I've talked with hundreds of agency owners and studios and freelancers at all different levels to truthfully know like what is going on and what's working, where things are headed. So I'm actually like, 1,000 times more powerful. If I was still just running my agency, I'd be able to teach a few people what we're doing and share it online. But I would be missing out on like, well, what about other tools? What about people who are using Squarespace or using Shopify if I don't use Shopify? I like having an agnostic community, because a lot of people use Divi in the tool stack that I use because it's what I use. But I'm very open, and like, if you don't want to use WordPress even nowadays, you don't have to. You can be in Web Designer Pro and use Webflow or Squarespace or whatever it is. So I really like that. And I'm finding more web designers are using different tools. Like we talked about when I had you on my show, it's not uncommon for people to use a few different tools now. So I'm still like even more so relevant, especially on the business side and strategy. Now, the one thing to that, to be completely honest, is yes, I'm not the like Divi guy anymore. Back in 2020, I was the Yoda of Divi, and people came to me to learn the Divi tricks, and I was getting really good with CSS. So that side of things, I'm even starting to phase out more. Like, and I'm honest, like don't come to me I'm not like the Divi guy anymore. So I'm honest about that. But as far as like business as a whole, more valuable than ever, for sure.
That's incredibly good context there. And it makes sense because now you have more of a surface area to kind of learn from, because you're consulting on all of it. And honestly, I didn't think about the role that the advisory played, where you have more like I would call it like secondary kind of like learning access from the people, even just the questions that the people are asking and that you're answering, and you're talking to all these different people, you know, on calls and in the community and stuff. But then you also have direct access with the agency that you did run. And now you could see it's like, oh, we were doing it differently, you know, a few years ago when I was there, but now they've changed it, and it's like to just change with the time. So I think that that's actually a huge thing, is maybe you could be either on the board of your own company or the board of another company, so you have more access if you do change that. That's a great one. I want to ask you this question here too. So obviously you have the podcast. You did a bunch of tutorial content from the content side of things, right? You did a bunch of tutorial content in Divi and in general in WordPress and everything like that, taught a lot of people and gained a lot of authority there. Then, you know, as you moved away from that or moved like kind of up into like the thinker, community builder, et cetera role, your channel, I think, moved towards mainly just the pod, right? So now you're doing the pod, largest in web design, a lot of authority there. Are you at this point in 2026 and kind of beyond here, where is like your main lead source, so to speak, and student source coming from? Are they still seeing the evergreen content and then coming to you via that? Is it mainly from the pod? Are you doing like separate outreach? What's it actually look like to continuously build the MRR within this community now?
It's my biggest challenge right now, Mark, is the content, because what I just mentioned, which is like I have gone from being like the Divi and WordPress guy to like web design coach guy. So absolutely the podcast is number one for me. And the way people are finding that is a lot of people say they're just searching web design in podcasts, like in an Apple Play or a Spotify. And wow. I've been doing this since 2019. So we're generally the number one, the search. So huge for me. I'm so sorry. I'm dealing with this freaking cold, by the way. I'm making,
you're good.
Am I muting myself when I cough? Because I didn't want to hit everyone with that.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
So that is the big struggle though, is I'm like truthfully right now in the point where I'm transitioning all content from like Divi WordPress guy to more general web design business kind of guy. Now, a lot of that content is still super helpful. People do find my Divi tutorials, and the moment something is going to be irrelevant, I will take it down. And I'm actually about to go through like a really extensive, because I got like 400 plus podcasts, at least 300 plus tutorial/videos on YouTube that are not the podcast. So I've got a huge catalog that I need to go through and be like, okay, what is dated? What's irrelevant? It pains me to delete something, but I know it's for the good of everybody if I just delete it. So that's kind of where I am right now, is transitioning from like the tech, Divi WordPress guy to more of the business. Now, I still love sharing tool stuff as far as like tools that I use and trust and recommend, especially if I get into sponsorship stuff. So I will still do those, but it'll probably be a little less frequent. And I think what I'll do, like I'm still planning on doing like a Divi 5 tutorial on how I'm using it, but I think I'll cater that towards like, here's how I'm using Divi 5 on Web Designer Pro. Here's a look at the back end. Here's how I build it, versus a like, true like Divi advanced course, because Tim Streifler with Divi Life, Anya with Divi Lover, those two are like, I was actually just looking at Anya's new Divi course. She gave me behind the scenes look at that. And I'm like, this is so much better than what I would do, because that's what she does. She's an amazing designer, all in on Divi, knows way more about CSS than I do at this point. So to that point of like, do you become irrelevant? You do, I think, tend to get to a point where you need to, it goes back to the quote, what gets you here won't get you there. And I think I'm there right now with like being the Divi CSS guy. I think my content is going to change to where I'm much more moving towards like business. Web design obviously is the huge part of that. And I'm still going to teach on the process of web design, SEO, design principles, but you could use whatever tool you want with my frameworks and principles. So yeah.
Well, I think it's simple as, again, people just evolve. People just evolve. You know what I mean? People evolve. Their processes evolve. Their life evolves. Their business evolves. What have you? I mean, because again, like, I don't think that most people, if you could make a living if you wanted to become the best Divi CSS guy, as an example. I mean, what you could argue is that pull big enough to to sustain whatever you wanted to revenue wise or whatever. But the point is, like, you could find a skill and you could just do that. But I think a lot of times, like we've been talking about here the whole time, is a lot of times you end up wanting more, so to speak, not necessarily more money. Yes. But more like a higher meaning. So you can like affect more people with the thoughts that you have. And naturally it kind of goes from like very specific skill within a business to, okay, maybe like now we're touching more of like the overall industry. So you go from like Divi to like WordPress to like web designers to eventually maybe community builders of web design or something, you know what I mean? Like that's just, it seems like a very natural progression. And, but I totally understand because I'm already going through this in like my content and my thing where it's like, I don't just want to be like kind of a WordPress YouTuber or content creator. I want to be more, so to speak, than that. And I also feel like, I don't know if this has ever happened to you. I feel like I'm such an avid learner that I go so hard and so deep into whatever the topic is. And I learn like 80 to 90% of what it is, which is more than the average person. Like I am now bored with this because I know so much of it. I'm seeing so many recurring things now, and I'm just seeing the same recurring thought processes. And I really don't think it's healthy for people that are like that to get stuck in that rut of, okay, now I'm just like seeing the same shit like 80, 90% of the time. I need to go find something that's like adjacent, but again, maybe like a step up in that ladder, or maybe a step to the side in implementation or something like that. And I think that's, I mean, I think it just describes kind of like exactly kind of what you're saying in your business and in your life in general there.
And what it really gets down to is a change of identity, which is really hard. It's a really hard thing to deal with because and this is really common for most web designers. You go from being a web designer to a web owner, like a business owner / maybe agency owner. And then you become almost like a web business consultant / marketer, which is again, brings us back to where I think web design has been for a while, and where all roads lead to websites. And then as a web designer, business owner, the roads open up to being more of a consultant kind of person. So for me, like I went from being a web designer to a web owner to a teacher, mentor, and coach, community builder. And somebody just recently, it was Jason. I'm in a mastermind with Jason Gracia, who owns Swift Sites, which is like an incredible productized system for coach websites. And he was like, Josh, you're such a great business strategist. And I was like, oh, I never even thought of myself. Yeah, new title unlocked. Never even thought of myself like that. But as I'm thinking about it, I mean, some of our conversation here is a little bit of that with like, if you're going to be a course creator, you know, the strategy of that business model should probably be more of a cohort style before you jump into community or membership. So I absolutely am like, this is super top of mind because I'm there right now to where like community builder coach is still very much my main roles, but I'm definitely a business strategist now too. I am not near as much of a web designer. And actually I was thinking just recently, cause I'm playing around with Divi 5 and some of the stuff. I'm like, you know what? I got people who I'm helping build multi-6-figure businesses in Web Designer Pro. And I'm like waiting to get back to them because I'm tinkering around with the new presets versus variable options in Divi 5. And I'm like, is this the best use of my time? And is it fair to them that they're waiting on me to help them with a, $400,000 business because I'm tinkering around with presets? Like I really am like truthfully getting to the point where I'm like, I'll teach on a little bit, but I'm only going to do like the fundamentals and the basics, the beginner style stuff of the tools that I use, because for as long as I run Web Designer Pro, I still need to be a web designer. I need to have that role in me at some point. Like I still need to be able to, get into a website ish, but I'm certainly there now to where I'm like, I'm really not struggling, but I'm really warring with the identity shift of like, oh my gosh, I'm like business strategist now.
I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation here, because I feel like, one, there's probably a lot of people that are listening that maybe they never go this route, but hopefully they still appreciate it because it's a peek behind the curtain, and maybe there's people that are going to go this route and it's really helpful for them. But the reason I'm saying this is because what you just outlined there, the actual nuance to that is that what's going to happen, and you can't please everybody, what's going to happen is if you take that situation and you extrapolate it, where you're sitting there and you're messing around in Divi on one screen, and then on the other screen is like, I'm making this dramatic for effect, but like on the other screen is like emails that you need to get back to from those people, your clients that are building their web design business that you can absolutely help and you have helped. The other screen is you mess around in Divi. Like if you spend time on the Divi screen, like you're saying, it's actually less valuable, even to like the world, so to speak, because you helping them help so many more people, because then they can continue to build their business. But the thing is, when you continue to move up like this, that's literally a move up, in my opinion. It's like you're in the tech, digging ditches in the tech situation, and then you're moving up to like the consulting thing. People are eventually going to be like, this guy, because they're going to have that objection. They're going to be like, this guy isn't even a web designer, but he runs this web designer pro business or whatever. But the actual reality of the situation is that you mastered the tech side of things. You now continue to learn the stuff as you're consulting and coaching other people. And the effect that you're having higher up the chain, so to speak, I haven't figured out how to articulate this the best yet, but bear with me, is actually having such a greater effect across the board than you would have just having like one person, like, or just dealing with like that one website or that one situation. I'm not saying it's absolutely the right way, because I heard this thing recently, I'm probably going to mess it up, is like you either help a lot of people in a small way, or a small amount of people in a big way, or something like that. I don't know if that's like some quote.
Yeah. But the logistics of that is like, I could help out 20 clients who pay me 10 grand a year and make $200,000. Or I could help 200 people and they pay me, $1,000 a year and get that same amount. It's two same results, just very different means of how to get there. I will share with you what's next with this challenge of like, how do I replicate myself where is needed for me to be able to be the true business strategist and coach and community builder. And what I've done over the past couple years is a lot of Web Designer Pro members have shown expertise in certain areas. And I'm starting to essentially build a bit of this is truthfully like behind the scenes, what's going on right now. And pro members are not going to be shocked by this, but I'm essentially building up like mini coaches for Web Designer Pro who have skill sets in certain areas. So I just don't love SEO. I have an SEO course. It's been a big part of my business. I enjoy parts of it, but at the very least, I'm just not passionate about it. Like I'm not one who's like reading SEO news and just like, I basically rely on a couple people in pro to give me the updates on like what is going on today. Michelle and Sam are my two SEO people. Michelle is like keyword research, content, copy. Sam is local SEO, Google business profile expertise. He was a pro member who just excelled in SEO, specifically local SEO. He actually has an academy that's like a sister business to pro, like a sister membership, which is Local SEO Academy. So most of the members in there are pro members who want to go in deeper into local SEO. So I'm actually building that up right now to where, Dave Foy.
Yep.
So Dave Foy is actually, he is a part of I revamped my DNS course last year, which just covers the basics of domains and email and all that stuff. And we kind of partnered up a little bit, and he actually has a couple of lessons in my course that are his. So mine's more of a fundamental course. And I'm saying, if you want to go deeper into DNS, here's Dave. And I have another colleague, Amber, who's really good with email and stuff. So that's actually what the next evolution of what I'm doing is. I'm going to focus all in on me, on what I want to do. But if there's something like DNS, SEO, maybe even Divi, CSS stuff where I'm like, I only want to teach so far into that. I only know so far into all those things. I'm going to partner up and have somebody who's like, I'll teach my end of things and the basics. And then if you want to go further into that, this is the guy or this is the gal. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's where I'm headed.
Delegating that, mini coaches, you're a community builder, man. You're connecting people with other people. You're building them up. And then you're leveraging them too. I love that.
And that has to be real in too, because I could have YouTube people, I could have podcast mini coaches, but it's like under Web Designer Pro, I'm going to keep it web design. Those things could be marketing sides of Web Designer Pro, but it's definitely, I'm basically going to keep my core curriculum of design, process, SEO, DNS, business, recurring revenue scaling, and then, take the lead on business, recurring revenue scaling, and have the other things, delegated out in some way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my plan. That's my plan for the next year or two.
I like it. I want to ask you.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say Web Designer Pro coaching is probably going to look like me and like 5 or 6 other people as like sub coaches. Yeah.
That is extremely exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that evolves. Let me ask you a loaded question, and then let's touch on the family stuff that we teed up at the very beginning.
I've got probably I definitely have at least 15 or 20 more minutes if you're down, Mark. This is fun.
Okay.
This is kind of half therapy session for me, so I'm liking this. This is great.
I mean, this has been amazing, man. I really appreciate it. Okay. So here's the loaded question that there's too much, you know what I mean? Like there's too much it's too much to go super deep into here, but the world has obviously changed in the last 5 years. But at the same time, you have built this over the last 5 years. So I'll say it's changed over the last like 1 or 2 years, like heavily, obviously, with like the advent of the buzzword of AI, right? And this is something that like I'm dealing with and diving into much deeper now in a lot of different ways. And I'm wondering, as a community builder I'm going to make some assumptions and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. As a community builder in an industry that has been predicated on the idea of like, we're going to be building websites. We've developed the skill of building websites, all the different things that go into that, which is not, those skills are not, they are invaluable in a lot of ways. They're not necessarily being replaced. But now as society shifts and as people are constantly over the last year and a half been like burned into their skulls, like they're seeing in every which way, even my clients that have nothing to do with like technology at all, they're like civil engineering firms. I asked them the other day, I'm like, hey, how's AI? Like, what's your relationship with AI? It's like, I hate hearing this every day, AI, all this. But at the same time, they're being constantly marketed to the fact that it can do everything for them in their day-to-day life. It can build websites for them. It can build apps. It can do all these different things. A lot of it's marketing. A lot of it's Wild West stuff, right?
Yeah. How's it going? How's it going for people who truly have it do everything? Like, that's the question. Sorry.
That's true. What is your... Whether it's right or wrong or where we're at in that situation, it is a reality that people are being marketed that. What are your students and your base of people that you influence? What are they asking you? How are you responding? How are you maybe, consoling them in a way? But also, I do want to say, how are you encouraging or not encouraging them to leverage the tools that are existing? Because I have an interesting perspective on this that I don't think we're necessarily going to be, we're professionals. And these tools could be used to extremely increase our professional capacity because we're not just utilizing them willy-nilly like we were talking about with the DIY earlier, because I agree with that.
Right.
But what's your stance? How have you tried to, especially over the last couple of years, how have you tried to implement it? How have you tried to maybe change a little bit of your positioning, or has it changed at all? I know it's a huge question, but just in general.
I haven't changed much as of now. And we've talked a lot about AI, but I haven't like rolled anything out that has been like an AI tool for web designers. Now, that's going to come into play in 2026 for sure. Particularly like the way I'm most utilizing AI, and I'm seeing a lot of web designers use it, is not actually building out sites with it. But you can. I mean, you could get a starter site template cooked out in 60 seconds with ZipWP or something if you wanted to. And even like Adam Preiser, who runs that tool, has said this is not supposed to replace web designers. This is to help get you started, basically. And I think that's still where AI is and where it's going to be for quite a while, quite honestly. So I'm seeing in a lot of pro members are using AI to help out with a lot of the like website content side of thing. Or one of my members, Kristen, helps coaches, and she has her niche is coaches who speak. Like it's like a niche. And she has a custom GPT that she does a sales call or a discovery call funnels it through that custom GCP that she created, that she knows like all the prompts, and it's pretty detailed to her system, her pages. And that has helped her content. Like, it's helped her alleviate the problem of back and forth with clients and getting content when she is able to like take one call and reel it in and magnify it and get ready to kick a site out within a week or two. That is like the best way for web designers to use AI right now, is something like that, to where it's more of like you could call it content collection. You could call it copy creation and stuff like that, to where it basically just alleviates a lot of the back and forth, or maybe even like a part-time job that somebody was doing for your agency. That's the best way I've seen it work right now. And I am not somebody who is fearful of AI taking over web design jobs, because, as you know, websites are so much more intricate and complex than anyone understands who's not a web designer. Because yes, again, a lot of these AI tools and studios can kick out a quote unquote simple website that could get by for like, I mean, it's basically just like a starter template that somebody would buy 10 years ago. That's essentially what AI is today. Instead of somebody going to Wix and doing a DIY, like choose a template here, adjust the copy, there you go. Now it's just done with, well, you can use ChatGPT for copy, kick out an HTML site. Best of luck with that. But if you're using WordPress or another tool, they're going to give you some starting points, but it's still basically a starter template, is basically what AI is right now. Now, for a serious business, think about all the other implications to a website. There's the technical side of things like accessibility. There's privacy, updated privacy policies, which I use Termageddon for. That's a separate tool. So are you expecting Fantastic. AI to go sign up for Termageddon, put all their details in, and then bring it back into create a new page and put the embed code and then get all your business detail information? Like, there's a lot of things like that AI agents may eventually come into play, but I don't know when that would be. I think that's going to be quite far off for like an agent to like go to different sites and log in, and you feel comfortable with them doing that and then getting back to you and then logging into a WordPress site, etc. That's just accessibility and privacy. We haven't talked about like optimization, the copy side of things, the messaging, actual images for a website that are not just AI generated, the actual design, the user flow, the user experience, the customer journey. Are they going to reach out to your customers and do research? Do they know your customers? Do they know your story? What about case studies and ongoing results? Like, is an AI agent going to reach out to your clients and get case studies and go back and forth and then record a video with them, post it on YouTube or upload it to Vimeo and then embed it on your site? There's all these other things that are actually going on professional websites that no one is thinking about when they're like, hey, AI is going to take your website. So that's kind of my view on it. It is a helpful tool in some areas for sure. And I'll continue to implement it a little bit here, but I am not a like have AI build your whole website kind of person. And I think it is going to affect the DIY crowd, which I don't know if you've noticed this, Mark, but Elegant Themes, a lot of builders, even Wix, which was like the DIY tool, has moved towards agencies, and they've moved towards like web professionals. In Elegant Themes, Divi 5 is not a DIY tool at all. It is very much it's a professional's tool. I think that's where AI is going to have the most effect is the DIY market, because again, yes, you could sign up for an AI builder or hosting and use it just to get you going, but it's a starter template at the core. Yeah. Yeah.
I think my experience probably has been like probably a little different just cause like I've dove in head first, and and obviously you have like a lot of clients that or you have a lot of students and everything that are probably like, I would imagine you're getting questions here and there about it, because again, they're probably like agency owners that are like busy, and then they're like, oh man, should I be dealing with this? Should I be, like looking into it? The one thing that I wouldn't even call it pushback, but one thing that I would like add to the perspective here that I think that you actually could be incredibly well positioned to maybe look into, in a sense of like, I'm talking like take a couple hours over a course of a few weeks or something. the way that I interpret what you just said is you obviously have all of the knowledge from your agency days. And now again, like we talked about, the surface area of all the people that are in your communities and the advisory that you're doing, with the agency still. What you just said there, like if we rolled the tape back, everything that you said from my perspective of what is possible, like with AI right now, we're in this kind of like overhang period where it can actually do a lot more stuff than we think, but that's just it. It's like a lot of people don't understand how to get it to do those things.
Right.
Like almost everything that you said could be done. Now, I'm not saying it should be done. What I'm saying is like I think the next 5 years of the world, the people that literally go completely up, logarithmically up or exponentially up are going to be people that sit in their chair and their desk and they're like, okay, wait a second. I know how to do all of these things. Like you and I would put us in this category, right? There's a lot of people that are like this, right? If you asked us right now to just explain, like just turn the camera on and explain everything about how to run a good agency or how to do a website project or whatever, we could absolutely tell it to you. The next problem though, and the problem from 5-10 years ago is, do we actually want to go do all of that shit? The answer for me is no, right? I assume the answer for you is kind of also no, right? I mean, we'd rather teach people. We know how to do it. We'd rather teach people. We like it more than the service. We could, but that's beside the point. So then now what this is affording us is the idea is like, wait a second. We don't have to go hire people. We could train different, again, you were using a couple of different things there, like LLMs or AI agents, or the whole term of like vibe coding, like AI agentic workflows to do these things. And if what I'm trying to articulate here, probably kind of poorly, is that the limiting factor now is understanding how to do things at a high level and understanding the very specifics of what pieces go together. And then if we can articulate that into these systems, and literally, I don't know how else to do it other than I'll show you sometime or I'll make videos about it, is like going into platforms like Claude Code and whatever IDE you have and just explaining all of that. I don't even type anymore, bro. I'm using Whisperflow constantly to just talk like this. And then it interprets what I'm doing and we have a back and forth on like maybe the best ways.
Yeah.
And then it can create workflows to do a lot of those things. Now, the problem is that AI is in buzzword land right now. It's in, this is just like the new hot commodity. Some people are utilizing it really deeply. Some people don't know how to utilize it at all. At some point here in the future, I do think it's going to go from buzzword to not like, oh, do you use AI? It's going to be like, no, everyone uses AI, but it's like how you're using it and what it's in. It's like either natively in like Notion. I don't know if you use Notion. Notion AI is pretty great because it's very contained. It's like I could build whatever because it understands Notion really well. So if I just describe what I want, it builds it really well. But when we get into this more broader aspect where you're talking about connecting Termageddon to our website and doing this and that and WordPress, and then, maybe we want to try Wix, and then maybe one project handles Wix, it gets really muddy really fast because we're too early to that. Yeah. So I just say all that to say, again, not to necessarily disagree or anything. I just think that is the trajectory that I see us going on, where there is a bit of a period right now where like it's very powerful, but it's not powerful on its own. It's not like sentient. It's not going to know these things. It kind of knows them maybe in space in its knowledge, but we have to train it. We have to tell it what to do explicitly. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you have all that information. Well, so it might be something.
Yeah. And my answer there was purely to the our clients and the average person saying, are you worried because AI is going to take over building websites? That's my answer is, and I'm absolutely not telling web designers not to take AI seriously and not to learn it and not to implement it. Absolutely. We have a member, Antoine, who's like, I had him on the podcast. He's like this, he's like you, he's an experimenter. He's a first adopter and he's like on the up and up on all these ways to use AI. Not my interest, but I know the importance of it for sure. Because a lot of people who are using it, who aren't afraid of it, say the same thing, which is it is a tool and it can make a lot of things easier, but it's not a replacement, especially because the DIY crowd and the small business crowd, they could use AI just like they could build a website. But how has it gone for DIYers to build their own website? Not good, 99% of the time. Unless they have a design background or a marketing background. So I think it's going to be the same with AI. AI for websites is kind of like, it's reminiscent of where the Wix do-it-yourself builders were, 10 years ago. which is, yeah, like you could do it, but it would be even more powerful if you have a web designer do it. And in the case of AI, it's so multifaceted. There's so many different variations of it. Like you said, so many different things that can be intertwined in, that I think a web designer's job, which is like a perfect cap to the beginning of this conversation, is going to be they're going to tie it all together, basically. Like, yes, AI is going to be a factor, and it may make the actual build of a website go faster, but all these different tools, platforms, aspects of websites themselves, and then we're not even getting into helping clients with like lead generation and email marketing and conversion rate optimization. All these other things I think are where a web designer is going to fill that seat. So again, I don't want it to be overwhelming for web designers, but I do want to prepare all web designers, which is that, yeah, you're not going to be just a web designer. And that's already started. I mean, that was the case, I think, probably back in like 2018 and 19. Web designers were viewed as like, oh, well, you do social media too, right? Like you're basically a digital marketer. And I think it's going to be even more important to lean into with AI. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I appreciate that perspective because, yeah, I do think I share that sentiment. We gotta keep expanding our skill set, I feel like. So, all right. So we teed this up at the very beginning of the episode, and then I said we were going to table it. But here's my bringing it back around the fold here. So obviously, I'm going to be having a child, our first in May. Excited for that. It's a real world thing, though, and I want to get your experience on it because obviously you're a successful business owner, successful family man, father, husband, etc. And we talk about all this stuff all the time. We've talked about business here for like over an hour and a half, right? Like we're talking about business, we're talking about our things, we're talking about making money, all that sort of stuff. Very important things, but really like, I don't know if you share this. I imagined you like, why are we really doing this? Obviously we're doing it to help people, but we're also doing it to, provide for our family and to, I don't know if we zoom out, it's like the things that really matter are probably the people that we're going to spend most of our life with. So, this is an area of this, fueled by progress, like this podcast that I try to hit on is when it's appropriate, because it's not like I love business. I love that. But I also am getting older and I'm starting to realize like there's a lot of life. There's a lot more to life than just the business side. And I imagine, with your experiences and everything like that, I imagine that this is something that resonates with you because, you've had multiple children, you've had to deal with different things that have happened, from that and family. So we don't need to go like unbelievably personal here, as personal as you want to, but I just know that you are a source of wisdom selfishly for me and other people that are probably in this position of either thinking about starting a family, thinking about, just, going through those struggles, because it's not easy always to balance it all. So I imagine you have some good insights that we could just kind of share here in the last few minutes. Yeah. I mean, my wisdom is, my motivation is just get ready for the shit show.
It's hard. It's not what it is it's not clean. For like the productivity bros, good luck with a morning routine. Like it's chaos, and it gets worse with more kids as far as like we're in the hardest season now of like the balance type of thing, just because my kids are 7, 6, and 3. And it's chaos it's chaos only if you're not cool with it being chaos. You know what I mean? Like if you want things to be tidy and neat and productive and you want to stick on a bro hustle schedule, you're going to be very unhappy. It's because kids their schedules dictate appointments. We moved this call around because my family's been sick. I'm still getting over it. That kind of thing, just like that's what changes, is it kind of becomes the priority. I mean, the priority is you still need to provide for them and make money and to do that. But it does shift in a sense of like the business is truly more of in a supportive role. And you know me, like I'm still a driven entrepreneur, and I have to be really cognizant of, like I said earlier, the reason I'm not starting a community builder teaching business is because I don't have the time for it right now. I just don't. So those are the kind of things that I think are really important to be self-aware about, is like, your limits, what you're going to be tempted to do, and you have to reel it in if you want to be there for your wife and your little guy. I will share with you a quote that is truthfully like probably the most impactful topic and thing for me that I've remembered. especially as an entrepreneur, because it's, you tell me, Mark, is it hard to turn your mind off when you're not working?
Yeah, I would say like, I feel like I have to, well, it's not the easiest thing. Yeah, for sure.
It'll get way worse with kids because, and quite honestly, especially with a baby, like, and when they become little kiddos, like a lot of the time together is like, this sounds so mean, and I absolutely love my kids, but it's even playing with them sometimes it gets like after 10 or 15 minutes, you're like, you just start to wander and think about business and think about other stuff. And I go back to this quote, which is, wherever you are, be there. Even if it's like for 15 minutes, my phone is over here, or my phone's out the, not out the window, but outside of the door, I'm going to dedicate 15 minutes of soul play time with my kiddos. That means so much to them. And it means a lot to you too, without like being there, but being on your phone or like sitting there and glazy eyed thinking about business stuff while you should be playing with them. I've really learned to, like, even in smaller segments, be like fully present. Same thing. I mean, you've been married, like same thing with your wife. You go on a date, you could talk a little bit of business probably, but they don't want the whole thing to be a strategy session for business. Like you got to be there and have fun, like be with your wife. Like, wherever you are, be there. I think that is the most important thing that I've leaned on and had to remember and still have to work on, because as entrepreneurs, we're constantly thinking about the business. And yeah, like a lot of times, especially if you're doing feeds and stuff, it's a little bit easier with a baby just because they're just a little nugget of just cuddle. And, aside from cleaning diapers up and feeding them, you can just they can literally just sit with you and you can do stuff. But it's when they need more from you is when that presence becomes all the more important. And yeah, you don't want to lose that. Like you don't want to lose those years. There's plenty of times where I'm like, oh man, I feel bad. I've been sitting with my kids for half an hour and I feel like I was there, but I wasn't there. And that's the worst feeling. And I give myself some grace because it happens. It inevitably it happens. And I work from home. We spend a lot of time with the kiddos. So it's almost like it's expected when we're all at home together all the time. Like I can't be playing, 24/7. I need to make money. Dad needs to go to work. And there are some times where I'm like, I've got a thought or something I've got to jot down, or I'm like thinking through something. But yeah, you got to be careful, I think, not to let the business bandwidth intrude to the personal bandwidth.
Yeah, my wife, she's a natural mother. Like she's worked with kids for her entire basically career. So like she's extremely excited. And the thing that I would love to give her is, because she wants to be like, a stay-at-home mom effectively. And I really do think that that's, society stuff has changed. And I think that that's kind of, it's way harder to do now than it was before to make it happen, like financially. But I think that it's worth it if you can do it.
Well, daycare is as much as a mortgage in most places.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So it's that's what I would love to be able to do for us. And that's kind of like my goal here. But the reason me asking that is like, when you have like a system, in your house where everyone is at home, is there any sort of a routine? Like, do you try to stick to some sort of almost like a 9 to 5 within your house? Or is it just kind of, because I imagine, when you have kids running around and playing, et cetera, or whatever, maybe it's distracting. Do you have any like little insights on how to keep it more, as structured as it can be, even though it's obviously chaos and it's to be expected? For
sure. I mean, you definitely, I think, want to stick to some sort of structure, even if it's not 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, if it's like a couple days a week are like deep work segments or calls. And one thing that's helped is I am very open with my wife about like, okay, I'm on a call for an hour or two, like keep the kids away from the door kind of thing. And luckily my kids are pretty good. Like they know if I come in here to work, Daddy's not coming out unless there's an emergency or something. So, and because I don't work 40 hours in my office, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not in here all the time. So a schedule for sure will help. It was a lot harder, we just got outside of Christmas and the New Year, and it was so fun having like time off and hang out with the kiddos, but I was definitely ready to like get back into our routine. And my middle daughter is in kindergarten now. So she actually goes to school 4 days a week in a private community school. So that's been nice too, because like, it's not nice that she's out of the house, but it's nice to have some semblance of all right, I'm dropping her off at 9. I come back, she gets picked up at 2. Like we have a schedule around that. So that does help for sure. And when kids are not in school and everyone's at home, you have to manufacture that. Otherwise it just all blurs together. So that's been huge. But I know for me, like I generally I've arranged my schedule to where there's 2 primary call days. Every once in a while I'll do calls on Wednesdays or Fridays. I never ever do a call on Monday usually, and usually barely ever on Fridays. But Tuesdays and Thursdays are my like heavier call days. Those are podcast interviews, coaching calls. Doesn't mean I'm on calls all the day. It's just I might have like 2 or 3 calls in a day on those days. So that's helped because like usually my wife knows Tuesdays and Thursdays are a no-go with appointments or other stuff going on, or if she has an appointment or whatever. So that's kind of how we've worked it. I mean, generally like what I've done is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays are pretty much flex days to where like we may have an appointment on a Monday or we may have something else going on a Friday, and I'll just work around that. Now, some days, if there's something going on, I'll work all day. Or some days, especially if it's nice, like I'll work for 4 or 5 hours and then we go outside and play or whatever. And then I do a lot of like 2-hour segments here or there. And then sometimes if I got something to get done, if the kids are getting ready for bed or if they've gone to sleep a little early, I'll do some work on my laptop, at 10, especially in pro. I'll jump on at like 10 at night and do some coaching via DM or get in and talk to people. Or like the other night when you and I were messaging, that was a later. Yeah, that was, I think at like 10 or 10:30 at night. And kids had just gone down to bed. My wife was getting our third down. I had already showered, so I was just sitting there. Didn't feel like doing the dishes. So I just sat there and we were just, knocking some stuff out like that. So that's kind of that's what's worked for me at least, is to have a bit of a balance of like structured schedule, but also flex days, especially with the amount of kids that we have and a daughter with special needs. It's a lot of appointments. So I have those flex days to work around that.
Interesting. Well, Josh, I just want to put it on record. I think I told you in in our back and forths originally, offline, but I just really do appreciate your openness, your transparency, your kindness and your authenticity with all this stuff, not just on the business side, but also on the personal side. I think that, resonates really with me that, again, you're a successful entrepreneur and you're somebody that has built like the family kind of into the business, so to speak, or at least around the business. And I mean, kind of, again, like I just see you as like a mentor and inspiration for me as I kind of start that part of the journey. Cause I appreciate you sharing all that with me, because that is, I was actually literally just thinking about this as I was preparing for this. I was like, you know what? I follow a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people and done all this. There's not too many, maybe it's an age thing because we were having kids later and all this sort of stuff and whatever, but there's not too many that like I follow religiously for business stuff that are also in the same position as you, that have had, again, success in business and also like built like a strong family unit around it. And no disrespect to any of those people. If you want to do it, you don't want to do it, but it's just something that like, again, resonates with me. And I think there are other people out there that it resonates with. So I've always appreciated, like I remember seeing live streams, that I've watched of yours, like, throughout the years where like you are very open with what is going on. You're not like open in a way where it's like you're just literally just being a human. Like I appreciate the humanization of it. And you're not necessarily, you're not hiding things. You're not whatever. It's just like, hey, this is going on in my life. Maybe this is why I've been more or less active, et cetera, or whatever. And I think that's really important because, again, as we move towards a world of like potential complete artificial intelligence, like the authenticity and the transparency is just even more important. So again, just kudos, my man. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Mark. I mean, it's really cool to be in this position, to be able to, I'm kind of like not the level up from where you are, but I'm like where, I was in 2018. So I love being able to help folks in your position. So I definitely, I hope some of these tips have helped and give you some encouragement, just because I mean, I think the big thing is, it's just, why I said the whole bro hustle thing is like, again, no offense to entrepreneurs who are at the top, but pretty much all of them don't have kids. Pretty much all of them. So if they do, it's like 1 or 2, which is nothing compared to more than that or special needs. It's like, it's nothing. So it is really, I totally agree. I actually was just thinking this yesterday. I was like, where are the like top entrepreneurs who have 3 or more kids, at least one with special needs? That is probably a very, very small list. If anyone knows, send them to me. And I only say that because I do think parenthood seems so much harder than it needs to be because they're holding themselves to a standard of people who are not parents and mentors who are not parents. And look, I know like Hermosi and all those guys are open about that. And they would probably say the same thing. And like, yeah, like, you know, don't align your schedule to mine because I don't have kids. Like you're not gonna be able to function at that level or do those type of things. But I think that's really important when it comes to comparison, because who you follow and who you get mentorship from, inevitably you start to feel like you want to compare your schedule and your life to them. And if they are not living the same life, you cannot compare any of that. So yeah, all that to say, man, I'm so glad to hear that, Mark. And I love being in this position and I hope it helps. And I do obviously have a huge heart and interest in helping parentpreneurs, for sure. So
yeah, it's definitely a big niche. Yeah. I would say it's underserved. I mean, at least it's not on my algorithm. So maybe I need to start changing my algorithm here really soon. But,
yeah, that could be. And it looked like Pat Flynn is a great guy who has teenagers now, but like it was one thing that attracted me to him was he talked often about his kids and how he balances his life around them. Why am I blanking on the membership? Stu McLaren is really open, like being a family guy and building membership businesses. Like there are entrepreneurs who have them, but they're generally not at like the top echelons, or maybe they're in a place in life to where they, you know, have more time or their kids are teenagers or they can do that. So, all that to say, it's awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
For you.
Absolutely.
It's fun. It's great. Man. It really is great. Like it's the best. It really is the best. Yes, it's a challenge. Yes, it's a shit show a lot of times, but as long as, again, you're cool with that and you're down with, you know, things being messy sometimes and the schedule to be wacky and to be off. My conversation with Jay, you mentioned earlier, I think that's why he was really open about that, you know, being a very destructive year on the business, because he operates and operated at such a like high productive, working a lot, entrepreneur without a kid level. And when you throw a kid in there, it changes everything if you want to be present and if you want to be a family man or family gal. So yeah, but it's awesome. It's great. And the fact that we can have an online business that supports that and we're not working 90 hours a week, amazing. So I love it.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, I appreciate it, like I said, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'll keep you posted how it goes. I'm definitely gonna be hitting you up for more stuff as that happens. But Josh, man, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. I'll put links and everything in the description, but you know, tell the people where they can go to find out more about you, learn more, maybe become a web designer pro, et cetera. Where can we send people?
Yep. Webdesignerpro.com is where to go if you want to enter my world and join my community and get my courses and community coaching. And then I do have my podcast and my newsletter over at joshhall.co, which is my personal site. So free stuff at joshhall.co, pay me at WebDesignerPro. How's that sound?
Love that. Awesome. Appreciate it, Josh. Thank you so much, man. This has been a blast.
I'm going to send you a Blue Jackets onesie when the little guy's born. How's that sound?
Oh, geez. Sounds great, brother. Thanks.
All right, my friend. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, show notes, joshhall.co/416. Connect with Mark, markszymanski.co, and the Fueled by Progress podcast. Both of those and more will be linked over at the show notes at joshhall.co/416, along with the previous episode that he was on about WordPress and whether or not it's just for old people. So make sure to give that one a listen as well. All right, friends, I will see you on the next episode. Cheers.